Joining two parts of the fabric is next.
So this is one piece.
In putting every piece of the fabric together, in this artistry, the sewing machine plays a very important role. After joining the first two pieces together, ironing the fabric has to be done to enable the smoothness as the clutch bag takes its form.
Press it, and while you're pressing it, just pull the two pieces apart. Let the right side of the fabric face you, and you take the right side of the zip facing the right side of the fabric. So the right side.
President Buhari leaves for Morocco today to attend climate change conference.
After said security challenges in the country will soon be over as strategies are in place for this.
Relatives of slain Lieutenant Colonel Ali request a bridge across River Niger to link their area with Lokoja to immortalize the late war hero.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall focus on the task before the new Chief Justice of Nigeria.
Nigeria's 1999 constitution, as amended, provides for three arms of government, namely the legislature, executive, and judiciary. Now, while the executive is headed at the federal level by the president, the legislature is made up of two chambers, that is, the Senate and the House of Representatives.
Well, the Senate President heads the Senate and the Chairman of the National Assembly, while the House of Representatives is headed by the Speaker. The third arm is the Judiciary, and it is headed by the Chief Justice. Each of the heads has a duty to ensure the smooth running of their arms.
Now, the Judiciary has a responsibility of determining, when required to, that the actions of all in the country are in keeping with the law. Now, the pronouncement by the Judiciary in a society where the rule of law is upheld is, of course, final. However, this arm of government has lately come under intense spotlight for allegedly manifesting unhealthy tendencies.
Well, the Judiciary in Nigeria has had 14 Chief Justices since 1958, with a recently appointed one, that's Justice Walter Samuel Onoge, being the 15th. His appointment comes at a time that is most challenging for the third arm of government, and that is the Judiciary.
Now, apart from the issue of alleged corruption, there are also matters of conflicting judgments as well as poor performance, amongst others, that are said to bedevil the judiciary. Now, for example, records of the National Judicial Council over a period of 7 years made public just a couple of years ago as well showed that only some 20% of judges in the country were ranked as average or very good. No doubt these issues sticking out like a sore thumb. And others, of course, not common knowledge. The new acting Chief Justice of Nigeria has a lot to contend with in terms of seeking to rebrand the image of the judiciary. So, the task before the new acting Chief Justice is the first matter we shall be taking on today on the program Good Morning Nigeria. I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I welcome you to the program.
And of course, the other issue we shall take a look on today on the program is the Niger Delta. Just recently, a coalition of persons from the region met with the president and will be taking a look at that. I'm Rhoda Albo. I join Kingsley in welcoming you to this edition, the very first for this week, coming to you on Africa's largest TV network, the NTA. And as you know, on the program, we also have our companion segments as usual. We've got the newspaper review, we've got business, sports, and entertainment, not forgetting our foreign news. But first, let's begin with the news with Lydia Samsing. Lydia, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your leave.
Rhoda, good morning to you and to Kingsley and to our viewers. And here's the news. President Muhammadu Buhari is to attend the 22nd Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Morocco, from today. A statement from presidential spokesperson Femi Adesina says President Buhari will participate in the opening plenary on November 15th, where he will deliver an address during the high-level segment. The presidential address is expected to highlight, among other key issues, Nigeria's unwavering commitment to implementing the national determined contribution and the policy action aimed at tackling climate change through environmental sustainable efforts. The statement further says President Buhari will use his speech to rally international support for cleanup of Ogoni land in the Niger Delta and the resuscitation of the Lake Chad Basin. The Nigerian Air Force has expressed confidence that the security challenge in the country will soon be over as necessary logistics and strategies have been put in place. This assurance came when the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, embarked on an operational visit to the northeast of Nigeria.
The essence of this visit, just to check, to double check, to make sure that everything is going on fine. And if there are challenges, then they will be tackled immediately.
Interpol is to connect key law enforcement agencies in Nigeria to its national database tool known as I-247. It is a database for tracking wanted persons, stolen vehicles, artifacts, missing persons, and other transnational crimes. The database has been restricted to police use. A statement by the police headquarters says this is part of the fallout of the 85th Interpol General Assembly held in Bali, Indonesia, attended by the Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris, heads of Immigration Service, and that of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. It adds that the agency to be connected are the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Immigration Service, and Air and Sea Ports, as well as international borders. IGP Ibrahim Idris, the statement notes, headed a discussion panel where he emphasized the effects of systematic corruption on efforts at curbing international terrorism, calling for closer collaboration of the international communities. Other resolutions was the resolve to revive the West African Police Chiefs Committee with its secretariat in Nigeria. Normalcy has returned to Port Harcourt International Airport after a bomb scare that occurred at the airport in the early hours of Sunday. An eyewitness told NTA News that the pandemonium occurred as a passenger deboarded from Air Peace flight few minutes to take off en route to Abuja. Though the incident did not disrupt flight operations, the airport authorities have commenced investigation to ascertain the cause of the incident. NTA is yet to get a reaction from the Rivers State Police Command. Nigerian youths have been advised to develop their entrepreneurship skills in order to contribute immensely towards the growth of Nigerian economy, especially during this time of recession. This was the view of speakers at the Joint Initiative for Development Forum in Abuja.
But it's not just having the opportunities. For me, the critical factor is what interests you. Everybody's looking for a job. And interestingly, when you ask them, what job are you looking for? Anything. Just one government agency. Just federal civil service. And I keep telling them, Nigeria does not need more job seekers. We need more job providers.
I think one of the key things is that entrepreneurship is not an easy thing. It's tough. But you need to keep at it. It's persistent. But above that, I mean, one of the most prominent things that was said is the fact that you need to know where you are going.
We need to think about this. Apart from theoretical skills which we get, one of these maybe might be one of you talk to them. How do they practicalize it?
The federal government says the Federal Scholarship Board will look into the issue of non-implementation of scholarship awards. This will cover for 2012, 2013 and 2014 awardees of the President's NYSC Earners Award. Minister of Education, Malam Adamu says this at the National Conference and Reunion of members of the National Association of the Awardees in Abuja.
It is my earnest hope that the issue of outstanding scholarship award would be finally put to rest.
We have successfully flagged our first phase of the training by empowering 5,000 youths.
What they have set out to do will help to improve the economy of this nation.
The Managing Director of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, Mr. Nsima Ekere, has promised the completion of the headquarters building of the Commission before the end of next year. He was speaking during an inspection of the headquarters complex in Port Harcourt.
Use of wide NDDC as the bad narrative that it has over the years around the country is because of the state of abandoned and uncompleted projects. And so we will do everything in our powers to ensure that this project is completed. So maybe we probably would have to consider things like performance guarantees so that next payments would be released on agreed performance milestones, and then they give us a performance guarantee from the bank.
People of Beluku in Bassa, local government area of Kogi State, Lieutenant Colonel Mohammed Abu Ali saying the construction of a bridge across the River Niger linking Lokoja with other communities will be a befitting honor in memory of the late war hero. This was at the 8th-day Fidel prayer for the repose of the soul of the gallant officer killed by Boko Haram insurgents. Fatima Ali reports that Etsunupe and Chairman Niger Council of Traditional Rulers, Alhaji Yahya Abubakar, was among eminent personalities that attended the prayer.
The father was in the military, he served in the civil war, and he was highly commended, his bravery, his courage. I hope with this one, we will now have peace, unity, and development. It will unify us more, and we pray that this war should end quickly. He died so that the 276 girls that were earlier taken will be rescued. The nation ought to celebrate and immortalize him as well.
Meanwhile, members of Nigerian Fallen Heroes Project have condoled with the wife and family of late Lieutenant Colonel Mohammed Abu Ali, who died while fighting insurgents in Borno State. The national coordinator of the project, Kenneth Ibekalu, led the delegation.
To pay tribute is to honor, to remember those who are fighting in the forests, in the bushes, those who are pushing back enemies of our country, as we are Nigerian. They are the ones that protect our freedoms. They pay the supreme price.
And that's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll continue with Kingsley and Rhoda after the break.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words. Run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try new Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. New Nurofen Express works at the source of pain. Fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
NTA Properties Investment Company Limited, a subsidiary of the Nigerian Television Authority, specializes in creating comfort in all areas of life, such as real estate investments, that is, land, houses, and office spaces, mast leasing, savings and loan scheme, household items and car loans, and so much more. Other information and entertainment services include Property in Style, a TV program that airs on the network service of the NTA, and also Property Connect, a nationwide magazine. Our priority is to bridge poverty gaps and sustain quality welfare of our clients. Partner with us and watch us help you grow. Pay us a visit today at the NTA headquarters permanent site, Area 11 Garki, Abuja, or our Lagos office at number 15 Awolowo Road, Ikoyi, Lagos. For more information, visit our website on www.ntaproperties.com.ng, or you can email us on ntap2000@yahoo.com. Call us on 080-2316-3474 or 080-6939-5185 or 070-3189-0555. NTA Properties Investment Company Limited, the much needed help at your doorstep.
All right, you're welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA. Now let's talk business. As the federal government spends 750 billion naira on infrastructure in 5 months, they say this is part of measures to boost Nigeria's economy. Let's get more details now from our business news correspondent, Joy Uzo.
The federal government has disclosed plans to increase its expenditure on infrastructure in 2017 to bridge the growing infrastructure gap in the country. The Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, disclosed this at a public forum on Wealth Creation Platform 2016 organized in Lagos. Said government has spent over 750 billion naira on infrastructure in the last 5 months. Mrs. Adeosun said the federal government was concerned about the growing infrastructural deficit in the country, hence it has made infrastructure one of its major priorities. Explaining that in the past few years, 90% of Nigeria's spendings were on recurrent provisions, leaving just 10% for capital projects. The finance minister emphasized that the economy cannot grow without the right infrastructure. She said the country requires at least 25 billion naira yearly to cater for infrastructure, and that is why it is being prioritized. The minister urged state governments to align with the federal government so that they can all move in progress together. The minister, who acknowledged the fact that the country was in dire financial straits at the moment, said things would have been a lot better if the right infrastructure were in place. Meanwhile, a member of the House of Representatives, Abubakar Chika Adamu, has stated that there is hope for Nigeria coming out of recession, but not anytime soon. He stated this during an interview with NTA Business News in Abuja.
All this farming, yes, farming brings food, but we have nothing to export. And that is why we talk about dollar every day. The dollar cannot come. The naira may be available, but the dollar is not. But we still need the dollar because we depend on other nations on certain goods and services or on certain items we buy to even boost the local industry. So honestly, we'll get out of it, but not too soon.
The legislator called for a policy that would restrict the minimum amount that can be withdrawn by MDAs at a go, saying their expenditure should be electronically transacted as a way to check corruption.
Even if you want to buy granite, you should channel the money electronically to account so that we can trace all this corruption. But if we cannot do that, we allow ourselves, you find MDAs withdrawing 50 million, 100 million cash for what? Electronically, we can pay this money, and that is the only way to stop corruption. But
the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, and the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, have concluded plans to sustain the Rural Finance Institution Building Program initiatives by establishing a Rural Outreach Coordinating Committee, ROC, to enhance financial inclusion in rural areas after the exit of roughing. Governor Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, disclosed this over the weekend during the National Consultative Workshop for Rural Finance Outreach Coordinating Committee work under the IFAD Rural Finance Institution Ruffin Building Program held in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. The CBN governor, who was represented by an official of the bank, said the essence of the workshop was to create awareness through sensitization of stakeholders in the microfinance sector on rural financial inclusion. He made it clear that the work will fine-tune and continue with what Ruffin started in 2010 as it will wind up by 2017. Next is a graphic summary of recent trading figures on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange for Friday, November 11. With business news, I am Jerry Uzo.
All right, thank you very much, dear Joy Uzo, for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Now it's time for us to also take a look at the headlines in some of the papers we have with us. Bayo Toyobi, newspaper reviewer, is right here with us for today's edition of Review. Bayo, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Kisley. Good morning, Rhoda. Good morning, Nigeria.
I hope you had a nice weekend, a quiet weekend.
Dampened by the 6-0 loss of our girls in Papua New Guinea.
But
that was an earthquake.
But it was also, lightened with the victory of Nigeria over Algeria 3-1.
Yes, but more victories would have been preferable for the weekend.
You say so.
You win some, lose some.
That's true. If you recall what happened to the then Green Eagles at the National Stadium in Surulere, Lagos in 1981 against Algeria.
Yes.
It was a qualification.
That was our highest hope of going to the World Cup.
Yes, it was a qualification. And Nigeria lost 2-1 to Algeria. In 1977, of course, we had also lost to Tunisia in the qualification for the 78 World Cup. Anyway, Bayo, thank you. You're here with us. Let's take the headlines and the papers that we have. The Punch newspaper. Punch newspaper has the lead story. Amid recession, reps take delivery of 3.6 billion naira exotic cars. Details of the story can be found on page 7. And then two stories with headlines just beside the nameplate. Senate will resolve Buhari's 30 billion naira loan request this week. And that's according to Ndume. Ndume is majority leader of the Senate. And federal government to pay 720 billion naira debt to states. That's according to Dogara, Speaker of the House. Details of that story on page 13. Now, above the nameplate, there are three other headlines. Report on sexual abuse in IDP camps not ready, says IG. That's on page 12. Will deport or jail 3 million illegal migrants. That's Trump. Will deport or jail 3 million illegal migrants. That's President-elect Donald Trump of the U.S. Details of that on page 11. Adeboye told me I would be governor, says Autumn. That's on page 12. Autumn is governor of Benue. Now, the front page photograph for Punch is a scene from New Zealand where there was an earthquake yesterday. You can see the cracked highway there. And below that, three other headlines. We'll just take two of them. More fun. NCAA and NAMA workers to go, says Minister. That's on page 32. It will be disastrous for leaders to kill PDP, according to BOT chair. That's on page 7. Hold on.
All right, let's take a look at the Daily Sun now. Just beside the masthead, it says Oshibajo in 5 minutes blackout drama in Mina. That's on page 8 of the Daily Sun. And below the masthead, Buhari leaves for Morocco for climate change. That's today. And the big story, tougher times ahead as oil revenue drops. Earnings fall to $181 million US. That's on page 29. And of course, the picture story there is that of the Mina Suleja Highway. Very bad stretch, a portion of that road. And below the picture story, Asorok chaplain rejects rumors of demons' presence in presidential villa. And that's on page 8. On page 6, you can read up. Reps begin consultation on $29.9 billion US loan request. And on page 9, new PDP coming reveals Governor Ishaku. And just at the foot of the paper, Trump's victory. David West speaks on Wale Soyinka's threat to destroy green card. That's on page 6. All right, Maya, take it away from here.
Let me start with this to dispel that wrong impression that may have been created by that headline, Vice President in 5 minutes blackout. Okay. It creates an impression that he personally blacked out. Yeah. That is very wrong. He was attending a religious choral ceremony in Mina. And while they were there was blackout, power blackout, in fact about 5 times during this session. So it has nothing to do with his person. It was embarrassing though because they had they relied on the power supply from the public supply system instead of using their own generator. Be that as it may, indications are that the Senate, when they resume tomorrow, will now have a second look at the 2017-2019 medium-term expenditure framework and the fiscal strategy paper. You also will recall that there is 29.96 billion external borrowing, which has been hanging. An impression again has been created in the media that the Senate had rejected it. It may be recalled that the Senate leader provided a clarification by saying that the correspondent from the president indicated that this is our request and here is the breakdown attached. Somehow the attachment was not provided, so the Senate was not ready. You know, the Senate prides itself as not being a rubber stamp, and it was not prepared to give a blank check, an approval for a blank check. Therefore, when it is represented, and meanwhile, within that time and now, the Senate President and Mr. President have met 3 times, and they have had occasions to speak over several of these things. And that is also pointing to one of the headlines that is indicating that the President has reconsidered withdrawing the list of non-career ambassadorial nominees. Again, this is part of the consultation that has been going on. You will recall that the governors, when they met, also raised a correspondent, raising objection about representation in their various states among the ministerial list.
Okay, let's go over to the Guardian newspaper and take a look at the headlines on its front page. Now, the lead story says, CBN to move against banks over poor services, with 2 riders urges public to reject inefficiency and delay in funds transfer, system failure not acceptable. And also there, it says 2,000 megawatts to be added to national grid by 2017, says Fashola. And anti-corruption war tearing APC apart. That's on page 14, politics section of the paper. Why another may not be substantive CJN by Fayose. Fayose is governor of Ekiti State. Now, second list story on the front page of the Guardian says, government approves 1 billion naira for Abuja runway repair. That's there with 2 riders, national carrier, airports concession to attract 60 million passengers yearly. Minister dismisses Ghana's purported lead as aviation hub. Now, let me just go very quickly to page 7 of the Guardian. There's a head story there, which is also, in a sense, reported on the front page of another paper that I will come to presently. The headline from the Guardian on page 7 says, diabetes cases rose by 74.4% in 34 years. Diabetes cases rose by 74.4% in 34 years. Now, there are 2 riders that I will take from the 3 riders there. WHO, IDF said 15.3 million Nigerians are living with the disease. And regular exercise and low sugary beverage intake may reduce risk by 80%. And that takes us now to New Telegraph, beginning from the foot of the front page of New Telegraph. It says, daily soda drink increases type 2 diabetes risk. That's on page 38. Soda, of course, refers to those fizzy drinks that you normally get, no soda water, by the way. But so daily soda drink increases type 2 diabetes risk. That's on page 38. And following up on that, 32 tank farms and depot owners face bankruptcy. And then there are photographs on the front page there that with the headline, students sit on bare floor as administrator locks away furniture. This is in Sokoto. You can see these pupils on the floor there in Sokoto. And after the, then you can see on the other side of it, after the furniture items were released, following the pressure mounted on the administrator who had locked away the furniture while the pupils were sitting on the bare floor. Now, Bayo has already discussed the ambassadorial list as well as the consultation, so we'll skip that in the meantime and take two other headlines. Rerun polls. I will humiliate Rivers' enemies. That's according to Wike, Governor of Rivers. Oni, BOI signed 1 billion naira MOU to empower youth. And we also have the Atom desperate to jail me. That's according to Suswam. The other headlines that we'll take later.
All right, let's quickly run through the authority. On the authority, I'll begin with a story that's on page 4, and that's above the masthead. How I'll govern Edo by Obaseki. Of course, he was sworn in on Saturday. And on page 4, reps summon Navy over seizure vandalism of vessels. And on the sports page, that's on 45, Raw hungry to succeed with Eagles by NFF. And the big story on the authority, 2019 presidency. Northern cabal looks beyond Buhari, woos Aliko Dangote into presidential raise. And if you come down to the foot of the paper, I'll finally take this. States to get 720 billion naira fund for infrastructure. Statement they credited to Dogara.
Rhoda, you missed that portion of the headline. Look below, you see that it is saying that Aliko is to marry one of the President Muhammad Buhari's daughters. Yes. That's part of the political strategizing. Such information was also in the public domain during the era of late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. Some aspiring presidential candidates were gunning for the daughters. You know, you never can tell with our politicians the way they go. And talking about politics, there are two conflicting signals coming from the PDP. Why the Governor Darius Ishaku of Taraba says that a new PDP is expected to emerge from the reorganization process. BOT Chairman Walid Jibrin says that the PDP will not change its name, and neither will it transform into a new political party. Governor Darius Ishaku was saying that the development will be made in the polity unless no development will be made in the polity unless political parties purge themselves of the challenges of restructuring and uphold internal democracy, which was the bane of the situation whereby candidates were selected without a transparent and credible processes. He says that in the process, transparency and credibility will be restored, and flag bearers that will emerge will be from due process. He said the crisis in the PDP is sponsored by external persons, and they are working hard to overcome it. Meanwhile, Senator Walid Jibrin says that there's nothing like transforming into a new political party. Entry organs of the party is working hard and strengthening the party, and he's sure that very soon things will be over. Meanwhile, like Kingsley read earlier on, President-elect Donald Trump has named Rene Prebus as his chief of staff. Prebus was the chairman of the Republican Party, and he was also in charge of Donald Trump's campaign. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is reported to be going back on some of his campaign promises, particularly those promises about health care and the challenge that he was going to imprison candidate Clinton. However, on the thread about immigration, he says that 3.1 persons, particularly immigrants who have cases related to crime, stand to be deported.
All right, Bayo, well, thanks. There was a story that just before we signed about the story on the front page of New Telegraph. 32 tank farms and depot owners face bankruptcy. There's a story inside the page on page 6. But somewhere on Victoria Island, just by 1004, I don't know what's going on, whether it's a tank farm that is being built there, but of course that will be in the middle of
a residential area.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's all right. Bayo Atoyebi, that's the much we can take to the newspaper review segment. We'd like to thank you for being with us. See you again tomorrow.
We look forward to tomorrow, God willing.
All right, we'll take a short break. When we return from the break, it will be time for us to take the first of our two items for discussion this moment.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Would you like some water? It's cold, especially for you.
Which era are you living in? We have a fridge.
When everything else in your house is from the present, then why are your toilet cleaning methods from the past? Harpic, all-in-one for you. Compared to other toilet cleaners, Harpic removes top stains, kills all germs, and removes bad odors for a shining, clean, and fresh toilet.
Wow!
You should also take the Harpic
all-in-one challenge.
Hear the call of change. Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to let the change begin from within. Look at you, oh get roll. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
All right, welcome back. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. Our first item for discussion this morning is the task before the new acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onogen. And Jimino hits the streets to get the views of members of the public, and here's what she came back with.
The masses, the minority, what they say to him, he should be able to take action and do something about it.
He has to look into the act or the law, check properly if really what they are talking about, the corrupt judges, is what happened. Then he has to take an action against them. But if it is not, he has to put them back to their position.
He should see, write his name in gold by making sure that all those areas that has to do with one form of corruption or the other among judiciary should be a thing of the past. He should be seen as one that within his tenure, that the judiciary later came back to what it used to be.
My advice for him is to embrace justice, fairness, equity, and be detribalized, and embrace the change that the new government is advocating.
System was it's a bit corrupt, and the justice are not doing what they are supposed to do. So we're expecting him to perform a very good task in order to make the citizen happy.
And the recent revelations about corrupt judges, if anything, shows that we have a long way to go. And so as we have a new Chief Justice, his task is onerous. It is going to be his duty to try to cleanse the judiciary, not just the judiciary as it is in Abuja. Again, another very important thing is that judges should be well paid. Their salary should be indexed with inflation.
All right, Aunt Jibono, thank you very much there for those interviews with some members of the public. Now we have guests with us here in the Abuja studios as well as a guest at our Cardinal Network Center to discuss the task before the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria. First, at this time, we'd like to welcome the former president of the Nigerian Bar Association, of course, a fairly familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria, Joseph Dadu, Learned Senior Advocate of Nigeria. A pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay. And then we also have another Learned Senior Advocate, also a fairly familiar face, on Good Morning Nigeria, Chief Mike Ozekome. It's our pleasure to have you, Chief Ozekome.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Welcome, viewers.
Okay.
All right, and we also have joining us on this discussion from our Kaduna Network Center, Festus Okoye. Festus Okoye, good morning.
Yeah, how are you today?
And just to indicate also that Festus Okoye is a civil rights activist. All right, so let's begin, Kingsley.
Okay, well, gentlemen, the subject matter is fairly straightforward, but it could also get complicated in the course of this conversation, as we know. We have a new Chief Justice, of course, who is in the process that would eventually lead him to confirmation. He's active. Still, he has the full powers of the Chief Justice. While he was being sworn in last week, he did indicate what his own priorities would be against the background of various reports that we've heard about what is happening in the judiciary. But beyond what is fairly obvious to members of the public, what, in your opinion, gentlemen, are those key tasks that the new head of the nation's judiciary faces? Let's begin with Senior Advocate Daudu.
Thank you very much. I don't think you should begin with a very full plate. The issues burdening the judiciary or the justice sector is very clear. First and foremost, the Chief Justice of Nigeria is the head of the judiciary. It's an arm of government in Nigeria, and because of the principles of the separation of powers, every arm of government is as important as the other. And the Chief Justice of Nigeria is inheriting the judiciary that has come under severe attention owing to allegations of corruption and delays in the administration of justice. So I think the Chief Justice of Nigeria will be better served in discharging his duties if he exhibits zero tolerance to the issue of corruption. Now, the issue of corruption in the judiciary is almost historical in the sense that it's been there with us for a long time, but has been gradually increasing in very alarming proportions. Some of us raised alarm when we had the opportunity to do so, and we were told that it was not yet endemic. We don't know whether we had to wait until it became endemic. But it has now become an embarrassing factor to the judiciary, and I think that the approach of the incoming Chief Justice of Nigeria to how he deals with issues of corruption will mark out his tenure. And then secondly, and finally on this point, is the issue of the independence of the judiciary. It has to be his main focus. A timid judiciary, a judiciary that cannot dispense justice according to the expectations of the people, is a judiciary that will bring this country into anarchy. And therefore, the Chief Justice of Nigeria must ensure that the independence of the judiciary is revamped and sustained.
All right, thank you very much, SC and Joseph Daudu. But then let's get the views of SC and Michael Zekoma. He's just raised two issues now, the independence of the judiciary and, of course, what's in the public domain. There are allegations of corruption. Where do you think he should begin, or what should be the task before him?
Yeah, let me start by saying that, like my learned brother Sik has just said, the judiciary is one of the three arms of government. And there's this doctrine of separation of powers espoused by philosophers of the yore, Greek philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, John Locke, Thomas Hobbes, and then popularized by Baron de Montesquieu in 1748, that the three arms of government must be different, separate, and independent of each other. And our constitutional regime has brought that to bear in sections 4, 5, and 6, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. So when you see the executive breathing down the neck of the judiciary, attempting to take away its independence, then we are in trouble. Yes, corruption in the judiciary is there. Many of us have talked about this corruption over the years. About 4 years ago, I popularized the concept that corruption has become the 37th state of Nigeria and the wealthiest. That if we do not kill it, it will kill us. But it is not just in the judiciary. Corruption is in the executive, more endemic in the executive. It is in the legislature, more endemic in the legislature. But the judiciary's corruption is more pronounced because a judge is God's own representative on earth here, He dispenses justice. He's the only one who can sentence a person to death. And that means he has the awesome powers of an executioner. Because of that, in some cases, the Supreme Court has even said a madman that runs amok is even easier to tame than a corrupt judge, because while one can be held physically, a corrupt judge cannot, because he destroys the system, because justice is rooted in confidence. Now, the incoming Chief Justice of Nigeria, who is acting, by the way, right now, under Section 231, he has 3 months to act. Then when so recommended again by the NGC, can still act again for another 3 months before it's made substantive. He has 4 years and 1 month, having been born in 1950, to help us to root out corruption and minimize it in the judiciary. But more importantly, under Section 230 of the Constitution, the Supreme Court is supposed to have a complement of not more than 21 justices, up to 21 justices of the Supreme Court. We have never in this country had a situation where we have even had 18. The best we have had has been 16, 17. Right now, I think they are about 14. That has brought unnecessary pressure and workload on the Supreme Court, to the extent that the cases that are being dealt with now are cases of 2002, 2003, 2004. And many of them have been overtaken by events and have become consequently academic and of no use. So I think beyond fighting corruption, the next Chief Justice, who is now the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, has the onerous task of pressurizing the executive. Mr. President, sir, we need more justices of the Supreme Court. How come? How many justices are there? We have 36 ministers, and then one representing each geopolitical zone, making them about 42. We are talking of a whole Supreme Court, another arm of government. In the executive, apart from the 42 ministers, you have special advisors, senior special assistants, special assistants, personal assistants, and the entire budget of the judiciary at times is not even up to the budget of one ministry. So who is afraid of releasing some money to the judiciary to have a strong judiciary that is virile, that is not intimidated, that is not tied to the apron string of the executive? I think these are the things that the Chief Justice should look out to. Justice Mahmoud, who just retired, did very well in that regard. He refused to be intimidated. The NJC under him refused to be intimidated. They refused to be annexed by the executive. They stood up eyeball to the executive. And I think this acting CJN needs to know that the day you browbeat and intimidate the judiciary into a state of stupor or irrelevance, that day it is bye-bye to democracy.
All right, Senior Advocate Michael Zekome, thank you very much there for your views. Let's go over now to our Kaduna Network Center, where we are like to introduce another legal practitioner, Mr. Festus Okoye. Mr. Okoye, you've listened to your learned senior brothers give their own views on what they think the task should be for the acting Chief Justice of Nigeria. What's your perspective?
Well, I think essentially I agree with the submissions of the former president of the Nigerian Bar Association and also my friend Chief Michael Zekome, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. I think that the present Chief Justice of Nigeria is coming at a time of great challenges within the judiciary. He is coming at a time when there is so much confusion relating to the functions the judiciary is performing. And he's also coming to office at a time when the entire judiciary have been profiled as being corrupt. So I think that he has so much on his docket. But my advice is that if he panders to the current hysteria and the current situation in the country in relation to the judiciary, he will not get his acts together. And the point is that I think that the former occupants of the office refused to take the initiative when issues of corruption, issues of abuse of office, and issues around delay in the administration of justice was being raised by the Nigerian people. So since they refused to take the initiative, others have now taken the initiative, and the entire judiciary is now being profiled as corrupt. In other words, both the honest people within the judiciary doing honest work, performing to the best of their ability and in accordance with their oath of office, and the few bad ones have been put together into a community and regarded as corrupt. So he has to deal with that. But I think that what he needs to do is to sit down and draw up a comprehensive strategic plan. A strategic plan that deals with the issue of reforms of the National Judicial Council and the State Judicial Service Commissions in terms of relevance, reforms in terms of, explaining very clearly and comprehensively to the Nigerian people the workings of the NJC, how judges are appointed, how judges are disciplined, and also making the entire process very, very transparent. He also has the onerous task of also liaising with the Nigerian Bar Association in terms of the type of relationship the bar must have with the judiciary. Because what we have today is that judges are being tried on the pages of newspapers and through mob hysteria. Lawyers are also being tried on the pages of newspapers through mob hysteria. So we need to define the parameters of the type of relationship lawyers are supposed to have with judicial officers. So I think that if he begins to pander to public opinion from the onset, or begins to look at what the media is writing about the judiciary and formulates his policies and programs from that particular perspective, he will not get it right. What he needs to do is to sit down with his brother judicial officers and design a comprehensive plan on how to engage in comprehensive judicial reform. But I want to say that he must deal with the current issue on the ground, which is how do you handle the trial of your brothers within the Supreme Court? How do you deal with the justices of the Court of Appeal who are going to be facing a trial on account of corruption? How do you deal with judges from the various high courts who are going to be facing charges of corruption? The Nigerian people will be watching to see whether the current judicial officers have the capacity, have the courage, and have the wherewithal to also handle in a very impartial manner issues and challenges involving those that they are serving in the same bench with. So I think that he has an onerous task, but my own perspective is that he should be cautious, he should be comprehensive, and he should handle this, all the gamut of issues facing the judiciary from a very, very calm perspective and from a very strategic point of view.
Mr. Okoye, thank you very much there for your perspective. We'll come back to you. Gentlemen, Mr. Okoye has, in addition to the points that you articulated earlier, raised a key issue, namely the proper relationship between the bar and the bench. Now, when we talk about the judiciary, we're actually referring to both the bar and the bench, and there you also have the paralegal staff who provide support to the bar and the bench. Now, let's get your view on this, Learned Senior Advocate Dad.
Yes, the relationship between the bar and the bench is one of a shared origin. Lawyers who are at the bar and judges on the bench started from a common pool. They all went to the same school, same university, the same law school, and it probably practiced in the same chambers until they went their separate ways. So they share a common affinity. Now, with this, a lawyer is always taught that he's a minister in the Temple of Justice. And while the judges man the Temple of Justice, the lawyers have their basic rules of cordiality, respect, presenting their cases with courage in their relationship with the bench. And I think over the years, the relationship between the bar and the bench, barring one or two incidences, has always been one of respect and cordiality. Now, matters arising in recent times, you find lawyers being accused of, in quote, giving bribes to judges, even when they do not have cases before those judges. Now, none, in my view, is sub judice yet, and we can freely comment on it. However, the point is that we think that there is an unfair campaign going on, especially on social media, to taint members of the bar and I think some members of the bench on account of gifts being said to have been given by a member of the bar to the bench. Now, as I've said it by way of preface, that we start from the same pool. We are probably in the same class. Some married the other. And last Friday, I did seriously refer to it that we might get to a point where a lawyer who is married to the judge, if he's on the bad books of government, will be accused when he gives chop money to his wife, who is a judge, that he has given her a bribe, merely because he has paid some money into her account for the monthly upkeep. So we are closely related. The point is this, is that there is nothing in the Judicial Code of Ethics that bars the giving of harmless gifts that are cultural in nature between members of the bar and the bench. The only point where you must exercise caution and proper discretion is if you have a possibility of appearing before that judge or you have a case before that judge, then it is unethical. However, when you have no possibility of appearing before a judge who is probably in Calabar, was your classmate, you have not heard from the judge 20 years, you receive an invitation card that the child is wedding, you are not going to be able to attend, and you send a token to that person. And then when accounts are now being inspected and vetted, your name is seen as having sent 100,000 to that judge, who you probably will not even recognize if you saw again. I think that is the unkindest court of it all. For now, that's my comment on that point.
All right, let's get your views on
yes,
this.
I totally agree with everything my learned brother Sika said. Now, not only are we from the same pool, judges and lawyers are like two sides of a coin. We're like Siamese twins. You can hardly separate them. They are like Hamlet of Denmark. They are like 6 1/2 Indeed, under Section 230 of the Constitution, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, for example, is supposed, and the Justice of the Supreme Court, is supposed to have been qualified to practice as a legal practitioner for no less than 15 years. Meaning that the first major qualification, apart from ethical something, is that he must first be a lawyer for at least 15 years. Now, we are all related and interrelated. So judges have umbilical cords tied to lawyers. In the University of Ife, in my very early years as a very young lecturer, I lectured some people who are today judges of the High Court and the Court of Appeal. As I speak to you, 4 of my classmates are at the Supreme Court of Nigeria, the 1981 set. Now, the question is, are we going to make judges Robinson Crusoe in Treasure Island by Daniel Defoe, that they are going to be operating from another planet, to the extent that when a judge, for example, the daughter or the son is going to wed, I will not be able to send gifts. I will not be able to appear at the wedding so that people will not say that we are having an unethical affair in terms of judicial cases. Indeed, Section 3F of the Judicial Code of Conduct specifically allows judges to accept gifts, monetary gifts, physical gifts from relations, from friends, to such extent as is permitted by custom. That is how it is put. To such extent as is permitted by custom. We all know our customs. So if a justice of the Supreme Court, for example, who was my classmate, or a justice of the Court of Appeal, or a judge of the Federal High Court or High Court that I lectured in those years, is going to celebrate his birthday, or is having one of his children marrying, and then I decide to buy a cow. I decide to say, my Lord, sir, send me your account. Let me send you 200,000 naira to buy a cow. How do you tame that corruption? That is why I take seriously about what Festus Okoye said, and my learned brother Siki said, that there is this mob hysteria that is going on, social media trial of judges and lawyers. It's like giving a dog a bad name so as to hang it. So whilst you are telling judges to recuse themselves and quit doing their job, nobody is asking ministers and other people, members of the executive, who have also been accused, to also recuse themselves. So we find a situation where the judiciary is becoming a whipping, the whipping child. We may get to a situation, and many judges, I think, from their body language, are getting to that situation, where when they want to take a decision, they begin to look over their shoulders. Is EFCC coming? Is ICPC coming? Is SSS coming? They prefer to call it DSS. And then, once a judge begins to take a judicial decision based on fear, instead of doing it without fear or favor, then that itself is injustice to the system. So we must be careful. And then, of course, during the course of this discussion, I'm going to discuss the issue of salaries, remuneration, and general conditions of service to see how these people are pauperized, how these people are treated like the Franz Fanon's wretched of the earth, how they are not respected, how they are not cared for.
All right. Let us senior advocate Michael Zuckerman, thank you very much. Well, actually, we'll come to the issue of welfare and what also needs to be done, or what the new, the acting CJ may need to pursue. Just before we go over to Festus Okoye, the Kaduna Network Center, while you were recounting some of those books, you talked about Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe and Treasure Island. Treasure Island is a different book. It's a different book from Daniel Defoe.
Yes.
Daniel Defoe's
Treasure Island.
Treasure Island is a different one.
Yes, Treasure Island.
Yes, it's a
Robinson
different
Crusoe.
one. Yeah, Robinson Crusoe is a different one with his Man Friday. I think the fly in the ointment has to do with the Man Friday. Yes. It's alleged to come around the precincts of the judiciary. Yes. Well, gentlemen, let's return to Barrister Mr. Festus Okoye. Mr. Festus Okoye, still on this issue of the proper relationship between the bar and the bench. They talked about the social relations, common origin, and so on and so forth. But again, let's try to interrogate what is happening. The recently retired Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Mahmood, at some point was reported to have said that the Supreme Court had before it 6,000 cases to determine. 6,000 cases. Some litigants have also complained about the frivolities that they allege occur on the part of the bar. In other words, matters that ordinarily, the Supreme Court has already decided, lawyers are said, to tell their clients, don't worry, we'll go on appeal. And then the more appeals you have, the more money you make, and then the more potential for you to become a son. How do we deal with the issue of allegation of abuse of judicial process by members of the bar?
I really think that it is a very, very serious issue, and President J.B. Daudu dealt partially with it when he was the president of the Nigerian Bar Association. The incumbent president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Abubakar Mahmood, senior advocate of Nigeria, is also talking about it. I think that part of the challenge we have is that some of us in the legal profession, some of us who are senior members of the bar, have lost the courage to tell our clients the truth. Before, it is possible for a client to approach you and you review the case of the client, make a determination on whether the client has a good case or not, and then advise the client properly not to go to court, but to explore other options of dealing with the issue. But nowadays, one, because of possibly the economic situation in the country, secondly, possibly because everybody wants to be a senior advocate of Nigeria, and some other considerations, all sorts and manners of cases go to court without filtering. Secondly, we also have a situation, especially arising from election petitions, where very senior members of the bar, and I'm a senior member of the bar, I'm not excluding myself, we are very senior members of the bar who are aware that a particular matter is pending in a particular court, go to a different judicial division and also file a matter relating to the same issue. And then another senior member of the bar will also go to a different judicial division and file a matter relating to the same issue. In other words, you have a situation where a matter from the same parentage with the same umbilical cord is pending in 4 different states or in 4 different judicial divisions, all to the knowledge of senior members of the bar. I think that does not tell well of us. And then at the end of the day, we confuse the situation in relation to election petitions. The Independent National Electoral Commission, we receive multiple court orders and we be confused on which one to obey. So I think that one of the things that must be done is that in relation, especially in relation to election petitions, when a senior member approaches the court in relation to a particular matter, I think that we must find a mechanism of getting some of our members to sign an undertaking that the matter they are pursuing in relation to an election is not pending in any other judicial division. Because when you have all this multiplicity of cases, it becomes abuse of judicial process. So we really must deal with that. Secondly, I think that the NJC must also set proper parameters on how to deal with judges that are indolent, judges that really do not do their work. In some judicial divisions, you see judges making very serious returns, and in other judicial divisions, no returns are being made, and yet cases are piling up and cases are pending. So I think that the Bar Association needs to put all these things together and then deal with it comprehensively, so that both junior members of the bar and senior members of the bar, we have we have guidelines and guidance on how to approach some of these challenges. And then there will be sanctions against those who go overboard or those who deliberately want to abuse the judicial process. So I think that the Bar Association has a huge role to play in relation to some of these challenges facing the bar.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Festus Okoye. Let's get the response of JP Daudu. Mr. Festus Okoye just referred now when he said that it was something that you actually tried or you dealt with when you were the NBA president. Would you speak more to it?
Yes, you see, I think that we had reached the point where the Supreme Court, headed by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, should refine the case management system of that court. It's indeed embarrassing that we are getting close to the situation in India where 20-year-old appeals are still pending or unheard. Chief Michael Zekome has pointed out that we are now in 2003, 2004 appeals. In my time, when I was there were 8-9 justices in the Supreme Court when I was applying to become a senior advocate of Nigeria. The turnaround time for cases was 3 years. You filed an appeal in the Supreme Court, and by the 3rd year, you have argued that appeal and judgment had been delivered. Things have changed now, and what has changed is that you find a situation whereby the judges have to deal with bulky briefs reading a lot of materials. I think they must devise new approach to dealing with cases. I think that one of the ways to do it is to ensure that all appeals to Supreme Court goes in by way of leave to appeal. There should no longer be an appeal as of right. And what is meant by leave to appeal is a way of considering the appeal. If an appeal has no basis, tell the man within 3 months, either at the Court of Appeal or at the Supreme Court, that you have no case whatsoever. Again, the time management of cases in the Supreme Court. You find out that because of our cultural situations in Nigeria, you get a man has the money to brief 10 senior advocates and 50 members of the outer bar. It takes 1 hour to announce the appearance of these lawyers in the Supreme Court. The CJN should issue a practice direction that you should not appear with more than 3 or 4 lawyers. Let the rest watch. They are not contributing anything to the meaningful arguments of that case. It's just a matter of status symbol that I, Governor XYZ, am in a position to brief 300 lawyers to appear. But the time it takes to announce appearance alone, the judges are beginning to get tired when 5 parties announce. So little things like that encroach into time. And the third part is that judges and justices must master the papers before them. There's no point, if you're an experienced lawyer, you come into a court, you find a situation whereby the judge has not understood the contents of the records. Maybe it's been distracted, maybe there's too much work, but there's been a situation where I appeared before, not the Supreme Court, but an appellate court, and to argue an appeal, and they said, go on, but the records of the appeal were not before them. They were sleeping in the registry. As I said, my lords, how would you ask me to go on with the appeal? They said, no, we'll read your briefs. I said, no. So, you see, a lot has to be done, both on the part of the bench and on the part of the bar, to ensure that there is speedy dispensation of justice at all tiers. I think I'll stop there.
Right, of course, we would like to hear the views of Senior Advocate.
Yes, the outgone Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Mahmoud, did a lot in this regard in trying to abridge the time of hearing matters and to get over the backlog of cases. For example, he had to introduce sittings. A special branch of the Supreme Court was created to sit on Wednesdays to hear matters timeously. And a lot of matters, a lot of motions are taken in chambers and not in the open court. Even ex parte, where there are non-contentious motions, they are dealt with ex parte behind the back of the parties and either upheld or struck out or dismissed. Now, the outgone Chief Justice had also brought about a judicial policy implementation handbook, which is supposed to enthrone the highest ethics of judicial conduct and the best practices. And for example, Justice Legbo Kutugi, retired Chief Justice of Nigeria, heads the committee that deals with that, where an anti-corruption committee has been set up also by the outgone Chief Justice and headed by Justice Emmanuel Ayola, another retired Justice of the Supreme Court. These are great issues that the new Chief Justice will have to go with. Now, there was also a system that the outgone Chief Justice started, and a lot of people have to understand this. Judges themselves live within the society. They're part and parcel of the milieu. And when we talk about corruption that has become endemic and systemic, you cannot suddenly expect judges to be from outer planet. Some clients have come to me, and when they bring a new case and you charge them, they say, Chief, the problem is not with the charges. Do you know the judge? And I say, what do you mean by, do I know the judge? I know all judges. I appear before them. They say, no, that's not what you mean. Do you know him as per? Can you see him specially? And I say, no, I don't. I fight my cases frontally in open court, and I win or lose depending on the merits of the case. For example, your own case has good merit. You can win it on its own merit. I don't need the judge. You say, okay, I will be back tomorrow. That will be the last you will see of such a client, because he feels that you do not know the judge specifically. So these things are there. That body language of we want to corrupt you to corrupt a judge are there. It has to also take the strength of the lawyer that is involved. As a Christian, I do not believe in corrupting a judge for any reason. I do not believe in buying justice for any reason. Because if you buy justice on earth, the weightier justice will be awaiting you in heaven. But beyond that, as I love my sister, you have to look at the issue of the welfare of these judges, these justices.
Yeah, but Senior Advocate, you mentioned that. We'll give you the opportunity to speak to the question of welfare. But just to stick with this same issue of the proper relationship between the bar and the bench, and therefore the responsibility of the bar. Let's, for the benefit, just hold on. Let me frame the question. While you were while you were studying law, LLB, and then at the law school, you could read decisions given by high courts in this country.
Exactly.
But today, where do you find decisions given by high courts being cited as authority, as final authority? Everybody is trooping to the Supreme Court.
They are hardly cited.
Yes.
And it's only appellate courts most of the time that are cited, Court of Appeal and Supreme Court.
Yes.
But once in a while, when the judgment of the High Court or Federal High Court is of monumental and constitutional import, we do cite it, but it's only for persuasion. But there was another point I wanted to make before we came, and that is that the outgoing Chief Justice also did another thing when it came to these election petition cases, because that is where the greatest corruption in the bench had occurred. People believed that people were trading judgments for money. So what he was doing was that he would not announce a panel, the panel that would sit over a particular case. He will not announce it. Now, the morning of hearing that case, it is that very morning that he will appoint the 5 or 7 justices of the Supreme Court that will hear that matter. So that even if desperate politicians were trying to fish, to throw their net very wide, to know which justices will sit, they will not be able to find out. And then there was another innovation. Every judgment, every decision, when you hear the case that day, the Supreme Court must hand down judgment that very day. And then they will say, we will give fuller reasons later. But they have already decided the case. So the question of trying to or attempting to penetrate one justice so as to penetrate others did not arise. So I think such innovations, and also the email system that the Chief Justice has, the outgoing Chief Justice also initiated, that lawyers can now file cases and you can know whether a case is coming up or not. They are also there, so that with all these ones, we can begin to deal with backlog of cases, in addition to what J.B. Daudu has already said, and Festus Okoye. I think all these ones will help.
Just before we take reactions, just to indicate that we have reactions already from our viewers, we take those tweets presently. I would like to get the views also of Senior Advocate Daudu. I mean, I'm sure just to get, as you used to see, Jibono J. Jibono J just met a judge of the High Court. They are all courts of superior record. Why is it that we continue to find, this traffic, right through the entire hog, from the High Court to our state courts to Court of Appeal and to Supreme Court, even when sometimes, with due respect, there's no merit in such appeals?
The answer is really very simple. It has to do with appointment process. Now, in a way, standards are falling in Nigeria across the board, and the judiciary is no exception. The judge trained in Lincoln Inn, Middle Temple, and later day judges do not have the same pedigree. And therefore, while the judge is able to express, if you read the 1965 Nigerian Monthly Law Reports, a very complicated case in a page and a half, you don't have that kind of a thing again, because you have a lot of copy and paste judgments. Now, copy and paste judgments don't enamor you to, how do you even distill? In some of these judgments, you find 15 pages are used to review the pleadings and the submissions of evidence and the submission of counsel, and 10 lines, the view of the judge. Before it was the other way around. I think the CJN has to look into the quality of the appointment of judges and then some re-education done along these lines.
All right, thank you very much, Essie and Daudu. That's something I hope that if we have time, we would have actually been able to look at, and that's the method of the appointment of judges. But then let's take the tweets that we're getting right now. Viewers are taking advantage of our Twitter handle at NTAGM, and the very first one is from Mutega. He says the CGN should do more to tackle the collapsing system. Nigerians want to have confidence in the Justice Department. This is our last hope.
And then we have this tweet from Jamil Sadara. It says he refers to the acting Chief Justice, he needs to fast-track all pending cases and enforce judicial code of conduct and restore the lost glory in the judicial system. And
Ukachuku Hippolytus says the supremacy of the independence of the judiciary for proper interpretation of the law should be the priority of the acting CJN.
And then we have this tweet from Ishaq Abdul Hamid. It says the judiciary, according to him, seems to arrogantly keep itself behind an iron curtain. The new CJN must open it up to scrutiny despite its independence.
And the Change to Progress says lawyers and judges know the problems and the depth of corruption in their midst. No beating around the bush. They should fix it.
And Bright Irene has this tweet: the task before the acting CJN. The fact is, those who are in charge of Nigeria's affairs, how patriotic are they not to compromise our future?
And Kolo Ibrahim tweets, the new acting CJN should unveil to Nigerians his blueprint for cleansing not only the judiciary, but also the executives and legislature. The new CJN's blueprint should be clear to the three arms of government as it articulates of faith and of independence of the judiciary.
And Sonny Michael Omakoji has a tweet: the corruption in Nigeria judiciary is systemic. Therefore, the CJN needs a systemic approach to tackle its challenges. Now, with the houses of some judges discovered as, quote, exchange market recently, the CJN needs to rekindle Nigerians' hope for transparency.
And this one is from Isaac Jibania. He says, nice talk from Mr. Ozekome.
All right, so those are the tweets that we are taking in the meantime from our viewers who are listening and watching this conversation. Just to return to Festus Okoye at our Kaduna Network Center. Mr. Festus Okoye, there's a lot. Let's take two issues at the same time, which has to do, one, the first has to do with the appointment of judges. We've tended to focus now at the federal level, but there are also complaints about the caliber of some persons who get to be appointed, that there seems to be some trade exchange that is going on. You find this also in developed democracies. Say the U.S., for instance, there's always arguing about who the president, who would appoint certain justices, and elsewhere they are also elected. But there are complaints about the criteria for the appointment of judicial officers at the state level. Should this be a matter of concern to the CJN, acting CJN, who automatically also has the NJC?
I think that it should be a matter of concern. The quality of judicial officers that are being appointed, especially at the state level, leaves much to be desired. Now, if you look at the whole issue about the appointment of magistrates, sometimes it's used as a form of patronage. People in government, have an overbearing influence on who is appointed as a magistrate, and that creates a lot of problems. In most of the states, the state judicial service committees are just figureheads. Appointments are done, lists are brought from external sources, and they are just rubber stamped, and people are appointed as magistrates. And at the end of the day, it is these same magistrates that get to become judges of the various high courts. So if the quality is compromised from the beginning, definitely there is no way you can reverse it at a higher level. So I think that it is imperative, it is important that the Nigerian Bar Association at the state level and at the various judicial divisions should have a big say on who gets appointed as a magistrate and as a high court judge. This is because the magistrates are supposed to be our colleagues. Some of the judges that are eventually appointed are appointed from the various ministries of justice, and these are our colleagues. Some of them are appointed from the bar, and these are our colleagues. So we know them. So if the Bar Association is given a bigger role in terms of making comments and also making a determination on who is appointed, I think it will go a long way in improving the quality of judicial officers. But just writing to the Bar Association and say make comments on whether this person is fit and proper, and then we make comments and say this person is not a fit and proper person to be appointed, and the following day you see the person as a judicial officer, and the person turns around and says, oh, I know the person who wrote the recommendation to the State Judicial Service Commission that I should not be appointed as a High Court judge. It doesn't tell well of us. So I think that the quality of judicial officers that are appointed at the state level, it should be looked into. We should have common standards. We should have clear mechanisms of appointment so that at the end of the day, there should be quality control, and we should be sure of both the character of those who are appointed and also their capacity to learn and the type of knowledge they are bringing to bear. You cannot have a situation where you appear before a judicial officer that does not portray himself or herself as somebody who has even gone to the law school. So I think that the quality is declining, and we need to stem the decline through making sure that people in the executive do not influence to a large degree the persons who are appointed as judicial officers, and when such persons are appointed as judicial officers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Festus Okoye. Let's get the reaction of Joseph Daudu. Actually, in the process of doing a research for this program, I came across an article that you wrote about some years ago about a 7-year period, and you said that the quality what we had then was about 20%, and it was you said it was actually fairly okay. What could be responsible for this, and what could be done in this regard?
Well, in fairness to the present leadership of the judiciary, there has been a change in the manner of appointment. Whether that is going to work will be empirically assessed maybe in the next 7 to 10 years. Now, in the past, appointments used to be based on recommendation, on an honor-based system, whereby if a lawyer is doing well, it is seen as being unseemly for him to apply to be made to be a judge or a magistrate. He is invited to come and take up the exalted office of a judge. Now, like all things Nigerian, we had the military come in, and then that practice, which used to be very strictly monitored, now became an avenue for appointments to be made rather recklessly. Indeed, it could just be done by one man. Get me this person, I know him. He may have not practiced at the bar or at the bench, probably running a business, and then you ask him to come and adjudicate. So it happened a lot during the military. And when the politicians came in, they also wished to have their own bench, judges to whom they felt comfortable if cases were sent to. And it's in the DNA of politicians to try and ensure that they know what is certain, which is also very wrong, but they always want certainty. They don't want to play in a field whereby the referee is impartial. They want him to be partial to him. And that's why at times you hear stories going on that at the appeal court bench, Supreme Court bench, some politicians have insisted that XYZ must be in the panel. And it got to a point where they started insisting that appoint this, appoint that person for long-term purposes. These are wrong. So now the new system, which the NJC must be commended for, is that judges, even prospective judges, apply, they write exams, their names are published, and the people write petitions on them. Even at that, you still find intensive lobbying for people to get their candidates through. But the filtration system now is now so much that you have about 60% chances that the bad judges will go. And like Festus Okoye said, the input of the bar is very, very important. We practice with these people. We know those who have a tendency as magistrates to take bribes, as judges to. So if they want to go to the Court of Appeal, once you know that this man has a potential or a penchant for accepting what he should not accept to give justice, then you can eliminate that person. So for now, we are getting to the point whereby in a few years' time, we will be able to see whether this new mode of appointment, and I can tell you that some of the best material have been attracted to the bench by virtue of this approach.
Okay, Senior Advocate Michael Zekome, let's get your views on the appointment of justice, and then take along with that what you've been itching to say with regard to the welfare of judicial officers.
Yes, I want to say this, that even the present acting CJN, as we were told by the outgone one, Justice Mahmoud, had to be interviewed by the National Judicial Council. Although it was the most senior justice next to the Chief Justice, and under Section 231 of the Constitution, the provision is that the next senior person has to be the acting Chief Justice when there's a Chief Justice that is not there. Now, he had to be interviewed, notwithstanding that constitutional provision. And like J.B. Daudu, SAN had just said, this last batch of judges, they wrote exams. They had to do written exams. Then after that, they went for oral interview through a process of filtration. In those days, some lawyers were so good that they were appointed straight from the High Court to the Supreme Court. Justice, I think Obi Okoye, Justice Oputa, Justice Nnamani, they were right. In fact, Oputa was taken straight from the High Court to the Supreme Court. And he later distinguished himself as an oracle of the Supreme Court, a man that was generous with words, with philosophy, with classics, with law. And his legacy has defined a lot of our laws today. The question is, why we must be careful not to throw away the baby with the bathwater is to ask the question, shall we then kill all the judges or kill all the lawyers? There are some books along a lot of caricature, a lot of fun about lawyers and judges. One of them was that the law is that a pope died and he came to the junction of going to heaven and hell. And he met St. Peter there. Some people say it's Archangel Michael, my own name. And then a lawyer died. So they also went there. Now, Archangel Michael told the Pope he took him quietly to a beautiful house, a duplex, in heaven. So the Pope was happy until he saw that the lawyer was brought to a mansion, not just a duplex, a mansion with angels singing, dancing.
A castle, if you like.
Yes, so a castle. So he asked Archangel Michael, I don't understand what is going on here. All my life, as a manservant, from there I went 10 years in the minor seminary, major seminary. I became a reverend father, then a bishop, an archbishop, a cardinal. Then I became a pope. I have served God all my life. How come you are giving me this small duplex? And that lawyer, you are giving him a castle, a mansion. Archangel Michael just laughed and said, listen, the answer is simple. Popes, if you go along that street, you will see many popes. If you go to the other one, you see many bishops and archbishops. This is the first time ever that we are seeing a lawyer in heaven. So we have to give you the best treatment. So that tells you how much of caricaturing and fun and porn that we have gone through. Having said that.
So, gentlemen, are you sure where you are going?
I'm going to heaven straight because I'm using law to do God's work on earth here. Having said that, we should therefore not kill all the lawyers or kill all the judges because they are not the problem. The problem is the system itself. The system itself. When we need to build strong institutions, not strong individuals.
Welfare.
So welfare. We always try to compare ourselves with America. Anything we say, oh, America, America. Let me tell you, the Chief Justice of America, his salary is $155,500 per annum. Translated, that's about 117 million naira per annum. A justice of the circuit court, the equivalent of our high court here, is on $144,000. That's about 112 million naira at exchange rate of 460 per dollar.
No, it's come down now. The DSS have brought it down.
Fine, okay, fine. So let us say even 420. It will still be about 150 million and about 110 million. Now, let me shock you. Do you know how much a justice of the Supreme Court receives as annual salary, as a monthly salary? It's not up to 1 million naira. It's about 700,000. Court of Appeal, about 600,000. High Court, Federal High Court, about 500,000 naira. Now, that is, of course, that is aside like medical bills, travel allowance, and all that. But we are talking of basic salary for a justice of the Supreme Court being 700,000, Court of Appeal 600,000, High Court and Federal High Court 500,000. My brother, that is not enough for a serving minister or a senator or a House of Representatives to fuel his cars and service his cars in a month. I'm talking about fueling and servicing. That is the salary. Meanwhile, this judge has children. He has a wife. We all laughed about 4 days ago when Justice Mahmoud, when he was retired, in peering into his own life, he said he has 2 wives and 20 children. And then everybody, we all started clapping that you did very well. Now, a judge has 20 children. He's on salary of 700,000 naira a month, right? And then he has cars, he has relations. The African extended system of relationship is there. Pressure is on him. Then one desperate money misruled politician who believes that politics is do or die and that he must win at all costs. He suddenly coming to that judge whose salary is 500,000 naira in a month to begin to brandish 50 million, 100 million, 200 million. I'm not excusing it. Don't get the mistake. I'm not saying it has to therefore be done. It is wrong. It is wrong. It is wrong. But because human beings are susceptible to corruption, because human beings are weak in terms of ethics, a judge whose salary is 500,000 naira in a month, suddenly seeing 100 million be dangled before his eyes, may get kind of tickled and say, why don't I take this and see whether I will be lucky? In other words, we need to look at the issue of remuneration of judges. We need to look about the issue of their welfare. Many judges who retired, they never have a house to retire to. Some of them that retired years ago, I ran into one of them who said he's living in Kubwa. And I said, what are you doing in Kubwa? He said, well, my children were able to buy me 1 3-bedroom flat there in Kubwa. You mean you are not in Asokoro or Wusetu or Mitama? He said, no. So judges retire and they are left with them. The worst thing about it is that when they retire, unlike magistrates, they are not allowed to go back to legal practice. If a judge knows that when he retires, he can still go back to legal practice and still be able to make money, then chances of being corrupt will not be there. But you box them into a corner, you sack them, you dismiss them, you retire them, or they retire voluntarily, or at the age of 65, at Supreme Court or Court of Appeal at the age of 70, and then they retire to nothing. That is self-engendered corruption. So the government has to do something seriously about welfare of judges, because to whom much is given, much is expected.
Indeed. All right, thank you very much, SAN Michael Zekome. Let's quickly finally get the thoughts of Festus Okoye, who is on our Kaduna Network Center, very, very briefly. We'll press for time, indeed.
I think I agree with Mike's views on this issue. I think that we must make conscious effort to improve on the salary of judges and magistrates and improve on the issue of their welfare. because these are people that are not expected to socialize. These are people we now don't expect to even receive gifts from their friends, from their relatives, and from their classmates. So to that particular extent, if they must also maintain their social status, send their children to school, send their children to family to hospitals, and also maintain some basic decency in terms of their lives, we must, as a nation and as a people, improve on their welfare. And if you improve on the salaries of judges, you improve on the welfare of judges, you will also attract the best brains to the judiciary. But if you keep them low, if every governor comes and then buys Tokumbo cars for judges and then advertises it that he or she is handing over Tokumbo cars to judges, and then once in a while 2 or 3 cars are bought for a few magistrates, it doesn't tell well of us as a nation. We must, as much as possible, insulate our judicial officers from corruption and try to package them in such a way that corruption will not become very, very attractive to them. And finally, I also think that this whole issue of the huge corruption in terms of elections and election petitions must be curbed. We must find ways and means of integrating our election petitions process into our normal judicial process and demystify this whole issue about election petitions, because this whole issue of corruption and some of the judges facing trial arise from election petitions. So let us demystify some of these election petition matters by making them ordinary, by integrating them into our normal judicial process. And if any judge does not have the capacity and the character and the courage to handle election petitions, the judge is not supposed to be where he or she, where he is. So I think that let us improve the welfare of judges, improve the chances of their living long, and also demystify election petitions, and then we'll be getting our judiciary back on the turf, and then begin to break the iron curtain by making the process of appointment of judges more transparent, their discipline more transparent, and so on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Festus Okoye. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you for your thoughts and your time. Mr. Festus Okoye is a legal practitioner and civil society activist. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Very much.
I'd like to thank our guest here in the studio, a senior advocate of Nigeria, Chief Mike Ozekome. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and time.
Thank you, I appreciate. And thank you, viewers, for listening to us.
All right, finally, I'd like to thank a former president of the Nigerian Bar Association, that is SAN, Joseph Daudu. Always a joy talking to you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that's the much we can take on this topic. We're having a second topic, but just before that, I'd like to just take a tweet from Ishak Salah. He says, please, the acting CJN should extend corruption trial to state judiciary so that the common citizens can be saved and free from the bondage of corrupt judges. That's the much we can take. We'll take a break now. When we return, we'll focus on the Niger Delta. We'll be back in just a moment.
On a white sheet of exam paper, I am calm like a sniper, bam like a piper, glam like a rapper. I'm never a slacker, fail like a failure.
How was your result?
This wicked girls here gave me.
Then give me.
They gave me 7 E's.
This week on your award-winning comedy series, Professor John Bull, starring Kanayo Okanayo, Mercy Johnson, Queen Wokoye, Yomi Fash Lanso, Stephen Odingbe.
Address me as the Ono. My title is waiting for me.
Oh no, we're waiting.
And Ono.
Mr. Owowu.
No, I can't take that. Olowu. Hey, I don't like all this.
What is that name they call you all over the campus?
Flashball with a big splash, depending on how you want to lash.
Big name that kills a small dog.
Professor John Bull, fasten your seatbelts this Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 to 9 p.m. on NTA Network, International, and Star Times. It's absolutely bombastic.
Over and out.
Welcome to the new speed of life.
Hi guys, look how my baby Jamil has grown. And as they grow, there's a worry we all share, skin rash. Some use lotions or petroleum jelly, but I found what works for Jamil is Nigerian Pampers. It has built-in lotion to help protect his delicate skin and keep him dry. See you in the morning, Jam Jam. Good morning, happy Jam Jam. Dry and soft and no sign of a rash. Join many other moms and try Nigerian Pampers with lotion. Let's beat the rash.
In the heart of Abuja is Barcelona Hotels, a hotel that satisfies your every need. Our rooms are exquisitely furnished with state-of-the-art deco, top-notch room service, and our restaurant and bar. Ooh la la.
Sounds good to me.
Our halls are spacious and affordable for your meetings and special occasions. A fully equipped gym and laundry services are at your disposal.
I'm very happy about that.
Feel the thrill at the Barcelona Rooftop Restaurant and Garden with an amazing 360 degrees view of Abuja and an attractive lighting display at night for your relaxation and pleasure while enjoying sounds from our live band.
Yay!
Totally awesome. Treat yourself to these and much more at Barcelona Hotel, located at number 23, Blantyre Street, off Ademola Adetokunbo Crescent, Wuse 2, Abuja. Dial 0814-137-5819
or 0700 Barcelona.
For more info and bookings.
Email info@barcelonahotelsnigeria.com.
Barcelona Hotels, serving our guests the best way.
All right, welcome back. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. Our second item of discussion this morning is the Niger Delta. And just recently, some Niger Delta personalities held a meeting with the president. And of course, they had a 7-point agenda that was raised before the president. Of course, to join us in this discussion this morning is to discuss the outcome of that coalition of the Niger Delta personalities is Dr. Chidia Madwekwe. He is a former chairman, House of Representatives Committee on Defense. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, let's go straight to the point. What do you make of the meeting between the president and, of course, personalities from the Niger Delta and the demands that they put forward?
It's a welcome development. But looking at the demands, you notice that they came with quite a plethora of demand that did not seem to have any responsibility attached to the leadership of the Niger Delta, but all responsibility were all heaped on the federal government. And with the cacophony of voices emanating from the creek, which is now being drowned in the mangrove swamp, it becomes difficult to decipher which voice you are listening to, so that government can take appropriate response to what is all important to us, which is the Niger Delta. It has always been important to Nigeria. It has always been important to every leadership of this government, and everything had always been done in making sure that whatever may be the disadvantage embedded there is taken care of.
You said earlier that your reading of the raft of issues raised by President of the Niger Delta would appear to have placed a much heavier burden on the federal government rather than some shared responsibility. What would you have liked to see in terms of the offer, as it were, by the personalities of the Niger Delta as quid pro quo?
We would have expected the personality of Niger Delta to have the responsibility to assist government to rein in the people. Because what we have today is criminality is being celebrated instead of legitimate agitation. We must make a difference between legitimate agitation and that is criminality. And if you want to pretend that bombing, busting the federal government critical assets is something you can wish away, when actually that is, you are holding the federal government at the jugular. And you just come and make a pile of requests as to what new developmental infrastructure money that must be poured in, forgetting that the same money you are asking to be poured in is today being poured into the river, into the ocean. So where is the government going to get the money to do all that? So I would have thought that, bearing in mind the age-long critical agitation that has been going there, first of all, we all should agree that is road for peace. Road for peace will involve negotiation, it will involve disarmament, demobilization, then the issue of reintegration based on a new parallel political and socioeconomic developmental agenda, based on the fact that
primarily we believe we are all Nigerians. We are not having any other agenda, either be it separatist agenda or otherwise, but an agenda that is all-inclusive. Because we must remember one thing, that the Niger Delta indigenes have played very key role in this country. They have believed in Nigeria. The first motion for self-rule was moved by a Niger Delta man. They have participated in government. So they are part of the country. So an attitude that comes to whittle that away and make it appear like there is a determination for another self-rule or a separatist enclave, it cannot be the prerequisite for positive outcome of negotiation. We expect the leaders to have one voice. You can recall that as the leaders were going, some of the boys in the creek said, no, they don't represent them.
That was where I was actually going to take you up on next, because if we look at the caliber of people who actually came out to represent Nigeria, these are people who have represented or called for the agitations over the years for, the Niger Delta. And some people are still saying, we were not represented in this. Should it be a cause of concern?
That is why, in my open statement, I said the cacophony of voices emanating from the creek are getting swarmed up in the mangrove, that it becomes difficult for any legitimate government to put a handle on how to, resonate with the challenges and deal with it effectively. It is proper for people to agitate, don't get me wrong. But what is not proper is to criminalize the agitation. And there are templates all over the world where people who feel their resources had been not adequately reflected onto them went into resource agitation. We have the Achan freedom fighters in Sumatra in Indonesia who declared a separatist state in 1976 because that is where the oil in Indonesia comes from. For over 30 years, they were in the trenches, hoping they could express that view by force. But after 30 years, they realized it was not possible. At Helsinki, they had to shit in their robust demand and fuse back into the nation state of Indonesia based on negotiation, based on agreement. As we speak today in Nigeria, there are mechanisms in place to address adequate allocation to that region, because that is what the whole thing comes back to. The issue that in 1969, the then military head of state, Gowan, by the Petroleum Decree, abrogated the existing method of derivation and made the federal government to have 100% of whatever comes there as mineral. Well, the people in Niger Delta supported that. That was why they fought for one Nigeria. You cannot reprobate and approbate at the same time.
But the Civil War was already on at the time. So
that's what I'm saying.
No, just hold on a second, Chief. The Civil War started in 1967. The Petroleum Act came in 1969. So let's get the dates clear.
That is correct.
Yes.
So, in fact, the atmosphere of chaos, of confusion, gave them an enabling environment to say, no, we can't, under this atmosphere, be made to agree to have this on. We are fighting for one Nigeria. We cannot be fighting for a situation whereby 69% of the oil which we are laying our blood for should go to federal government. They did not. They kept quiet. Having kept quiet, various other leadership have felt, well, amendment could be made. Until Abacha came with the 13% derivation. Today, you just to tell you that leadership has been concerned. In 1958, you had the Niger Delta Development Board. You had the UMPADEC. Now you have the Ministry of Niger Delta. You have NDDC. You have the 13% derivation. You have the local content. Local content is essentially Niger Delta content. What we should be asking ourselves now, so much money brought to local government, Niger Delta, what have we done with it? We must be able to say, this is what we've done with it. When we have identified what we are doing with it, then we can go on and say we need more of such allocation. Let me inform you that every nation state is organic. It is not built within a generation. Britain that colonized us, they are still fine-tuning. The other day you had a referendum as to whether Scotland should be part of United Kingdom or not. You didn't see Vikings rolling out their gunboats to fight, to shoot, to say that Scotland must be away. So where we are is that there are existing legal mechanisms that we should adopt.
Very briefly, because this is the closing segment of our program today. Are you implying that the meeting between Mr. President and the Niger Delta personalities was, with the greatest respect, a waste of time?
It shouldn't have been a waste of time, but we will have to situate it within the context of the demand. They came with demand. It's good to look at those demands. Some of them are legitimate, but some of them are not timely. If you look at the demand, there wasn't too much a difference for the militants coming to hold meeting with the head of state and list their demand. And like I said, the demand should have responsibilities on both sides, not just responsibility for the leadership of the Niger Delta.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Chidia Madwekwe. He is a former chairman, House of Representatives Committee on Defense. Thank you very much for talking to us.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, very quickly, let's take a look at the weather outlook for the remaining parts of the day.